And so I'm going to be passing around, and I promise there's a purpose for this, but a toilet roll, okay, to each table. And I want you to take as many sheets as you'd like off of it, and then I'll explain to you why I'm doing this. Jay, do you want to come help? I don't know where you are, but... Oh, you are so sweet. You take some toilet rolls. Yeah, a couple each table would be great. Look at that. He's so sweet. Oh, thank you. So I want you to take some sheets off, as many as you'd like.
One bag.
And I'd like this back. Oh, that's right? Take as many as you'd like. Take as many as you'd like. And like I said, I'd like these back. They come from our personal home stash, so salvage what you can. We have 6 kids. Just kidding. I can throw it away. So take as many as you like. So basically, what I'd like you to do with what you've taken is for each square that you've taken off the roll, that's as many details as you need to share about yourself with those around you. Okay? So if you grab 1, lucky you. Okay? If you grab 10, well, you better start thinking quickly. Okay? So we have until 12:30. You do not need to stay at your table, but you certainly can if you're still eating. I feel like you're kind of decent. You got a decent amount of people around you. So if you just want to sit around your table and chat, that's totally fine. So.
Honored to introduce today's speaker, but first I wanted to thank some of the people that made it out today to hear Coach. I also invited Brandon from the Harrisburg Chamber and Jesse from the Hartford Chamber, just so they can see what we're doing over here. I think Amanda and Brian and their team have done such a great job with this event, and we got to hear from the police chief and hear about the safety of our community. We got to hear from the school district and the future. We all know that that's our kind of prize here in Brandon that we're all extremely excited about. But today we get to hear from somebody outside that was a huge impact on my life. Great leader. I warned him I wanted to be a little bit less about football and more about the culture that he's created. For 20 plus years, he's taken 80 to 100 athletes and coaches and created a faith and family first culture that has proven to be extremely successful on the field, but way more important, it's produced good young men. So, my pleasure, head coach, South Dakota State University, John Steigelmeier.
And high five you for saying grace. I go to a lot of meetings and get to present because of my title, not because of my ability, but very few, if any, start with grace. So cool for you and cool for the community. I'm going to give you an update on our program a little bit, where we're at right now, kind of maybe some numbers, and then I'll talk about what Jason wanted me to talk about. Very high expectations in our program. I've been there 32 years, 23 as a head coach. When I say I'm blessed, first coaching convention I ever went to, this keynote speaker said there's 2 kinds of coaches. Those that have been fired, those that will be fired. And I didn't ever tell my wife that, but I've been blessed to weather some storms and really been blessed to be at South Dakota State that long. We're number 3 in the nation right now. We start out number 3. Something will happen here in a week or so. We're going to play number 1 team in the nation at our place, and encourage you, if you don't not doing it. The Pheasants will all be shot by then, so it's the next weekend. Come on up and help us in that game. 5-1. We've got some really good players, really good student athletes, and again, the expectations are high. And when I say that, I think most people that follow athletics are talking about the expectations on the field. The expectations for these guys are very high in everything they do, and that's really the culture of our program. And so we've traditionally had over a 3-point GPA, 110 guys. I say that, my AD says it, and he wants to do a cartwheel because he thinks that's an unbelievable accomplishment, and I think it's too low. I go through every class, and I see areas where you get a B instead of a C and take care of that. And so, again, our guys don't come. If they come there and they want to be big man on campus, get a letter jacket, and go uptown and be a tough guy, they don't fit the culture. And I like that. I like it. Now, we have some guys we have to mentor. We have some teaching moments in our program. But we're probably, like I tell a lot of recruits, I don't know if we're better, but we're different than a lot of programs. There's a expectation of doing 3 service projects every year to leverage. And so what is a service project? We've got our FCA, like your FCA down here, it runs a flag football deal. So our guys, case in point, got home. I went to bed last Sunday morning at 3 a.m. and we had 25 guys on the field running FCA flag football that afternoon. And they love it. They love it. So that's the type of culture we have. We came down in the middle of, is that where's Sioux Falls? Over there? I keep pointing like I know what I'm doing. Okay, we came down to Sioux Falls in the middle of fall camp to do a Samaritan's Feet project. So we brought 110 guys down, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the organization, their charge is to put shoes on 1.5 billion people in the world. And we were part of putting shoes on and socks on and washing the feet of little kids here in the Sioux Falls community during fall camp. And it was really cool to see guys that didn't want to touch a foot in the end getting hugs from these little kids that they'll never meet again, but were impacting both the player and the little person. So blessed to do that. And then Jason reminded me, when we went to Division I in 2004, everybody was against it, and that's really close to what it was. And what about the small town South Dakota kid? What are his chances? Our 2 starting defensive tackles, one is from Freeman, Canastota area, and one is from Winter, South Dakota. Those are small town. So we have guys from Miller, we have guys from Madison, we have guys from Kimball, or a guy from Kimball. Yeah, we have 30 guys on our roster from South Dakota, by far the biggest number of guys from an area. So we will always start in the state of South Dakota. And then we have one of yours. Kate Revere is doing a tremendous job. He's injured right now, but doing a tremendous job. And I love guys like him. They just roll up their sleeves. I don't know if any of you know Kate, but he says about 3 words every week. does a phenomenal job. So our program, okay? Every year I put together what's called a MAD manual. MAD stands for Make a Difference, okay? And in the MAD manual it can be labeled as our Bible, which is a good playbook. It could be labeled as a policy manual, but everything they need to know is in the MAD manual, all right? And things from schedules to who's in charge of what, to how the academics work at South Dakota State. And in the back of the MAD manual is a collection of statements that are called the Jackrabbit Way. If you walk into the Dykehouse Center, which is where we're housed, you go up kind of the secret passage on this, where the players go. On the steps are a lot of the Jackrabbit Way. And they're pillars of our program, all right? And I could care less if anybody ever prints it or says, wow, this is what the program's about. All I wanted to do is be imprinted on our players' hearts. And it starts out with team first, all right? Now that's a duh statement until, am I doing something with this mic? Is it okay? I thought I was jumping around or something. Team first, duh, right? Well, the definition of team first is every decision you make, think about the team first. Okay, we had 9 penalties in the last football game. We had 9 opportunities where those guys weren't. Well, one specifically when our defensive tackle pushed a guy and got a 15-yard penalty, he was thinking about himself, totally about himself. And it goes from that to being at the house party, to getting up, going to class, to everything team first. Okay, the second one is the most important, and that's belief. Right? Coaches are famous. They're famous for, I recruit you, and I want you to believe in everything instantly. In fact, when you do that, you move a lot faster ahead in our program. But coaches make him do something for me to believe in it. They're weird ducks, coaches are, right? You believe in everything, but prove to me you're worthy of me putting you on the field. So in our program, I started out the last 23 years as the head coach. The first statement I've said to our coaches in fall camp meetings is this is the best football team we're ever going to have at South Dakota State. I don't know if that's true, right? And they know I'm not saying that. I'm saying believe in your players. And those of you that are educators understand the self-fulfilling prophecy. When I look at somebody, beyond what he even is now, he's going to get closer to reaching that. So we just apply an educational philosophy, all right? And so you believe in my weight room, our weight program, and our academic support stuff, I'll believe in you. In fact, I'll look at you like you're going to be an All-American someday, and I'll treat you like that. That's hard for some coaches to do. Then we talk about winning. I never had winning in it. The Jackal way never had winning in it. I thought that would take care of itself, and then a number of years ago, a player came in and said, "Coach, you never talk about winning during fall camp," so I put it in there. And now we talk about winning the national championship, which is kind of cool to say that and not flinch. Now, we haven't done it yet, but we've been in the semifinals the last 2 years, and I think we can say that now and have the grounds, the foundation to say we'll do that someday. And that won't be my proudest moment, but that will really be cool moment. Then we have a term that says, leave nothing to chance. So when a guy makes a mistake and he comes into my office, I say, what is one of the things we talk about? He says, leave nothing to chance. You left something to chance, right? Whatever it could be. And your mind can race, but it could be whatever. Okay? In our program, when a guy gets in trouble, makes an error, it could be some bad law thing, or it could be missing a class. They wear a purple jersey for a week. And that tells the team, I'm aware of it, and I'm taking care of it, you just keep doing your job. And like in a family, I treat them all differently. Then we have a term we call championship effort. Okay? First of all, effort is a choice. Our guys have to understand that. Effort is a choice, then lack of effort is also a choice. And the person that coined the term, gave 110%, should have been shot the day he said that. Because there's no such thing. That is telling people that at some point, give a little bit more. I'm telling our guys in our program, why wait? Give the kind of effort it takes to win a championship. And so every game, I won't get into the math, but every game I give them a score in terms of championship effort. And you don't need to know where it comes from, but our goal is to get 98%. We've been 97.1 one game in the last 10 years. Really hard, really high expectation. Championship effort. Okay? And then we coin a term, and if you watch us play in the back of our helmets, it says last play. And that means, and a guy, Luke Meadows taught me this, right? If that was your last play on film, what would you want that to say? Well, how would you want to look? What would you want to have said with your last play? And then now I'm going to give you a side story. Last year, our starting running back was a guy named Isaac Wallace. Very talented student athlete. He's going to rule the world someday. He's really a special guy. And he came into my office as a senior. He said, you know what, Coach, I just figured out I'm going through everything for the last time. It's my last fall camp, my senior speech. He went through the whole litany of stuff, and he got kind of emotional about it. And I said, well, that's what we talked about last play. And last year, in the Youngstown game, he caught a pass, struggled for a first down, defensive end jumped on him, and he dislocated his hip. And that was his last play. And he was a pitcher. We bring that up all the time, because he was that kind of guy that was squeezing every moment out of fall camp and stuff, and then he was done. And we have, when you're in a place for 32 years, you have a lot of stories like that that you can go back to, and I can talk about guys that were there decades ago, before these guys were born. They get really tired of that. But we have 1,065 living football alums. Okay, they should know that. They should know that, because they're going to be part of that someday. So, then we have a statement that says excel. So when a young man comes into my office and he sits down and says, I want to be a physical education major, or he says, I want to be a civil engineer, I say, well, then I want you to be the best physical education major at South Dakota State. Somebody's got to do that, right? I don't want you to think because you're a student athlete, you can't do that. I want you to excel in everything you do. I want you to be the best person possible. And we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, and then I remind him, which I kind of said, it says academics, football, and then community. And I want all those things I just talked about, leave nothing to chance, championship effort, excelling, I want you to do that in everything. And that's really hard to do, really hard to do. Then down towards the bottom it says, and this was really hard for me, it essentially says, be who God made you. So I would have taken you you two guys, if I didn't like something about you, I didn't try to change it. I thought we're all supposed to look the same and be the same, and I figured out I had 110 guys that didn't like me. All right? I was trying to change it. The only guy that liked me, if we had one, was the guy that just fit my mold of and I realized that you're special, you're unique, and you're special, and you're unique, and why not rejoice in that? So a young man will come into our office and he'll say, you know, Coach, my sister's getting married in the middle of fall camp. Well, let's make it work. Most coaches would say, that can't happen. That's a lack of commitment on your part. No, your sister wasn't very smart, that's the deal. I'm going to treat you like an individual. The only requirement is they bring me back a piece of cake. So, and so, in fact, I have Monopoly card, get out of jail card free. They say, you want to use your get out of jail card free? They look at me like, what are you talking about? Well, it's a free pass, right? You can do it. It's a joke, not for you guys, but for them, to treat them individually. Then we talk about championship character. We talk about being a man of our word, being responsible, doing things right. We have a whole section on spiritual stuff. I've taken, it's called the Athlete's Topical Bible, and it's got all these different topics. It'll say, when you're struggling with playing time, and it's got 5 or 6 verses that address that. So the secretary has taken, I picked them out and she typed it up, and so there's a topic. Whatever that athlete can face is in the Mad Manual. Okay? Now some of you, church and state and all that stuff, side story, all right? So last year, I think, because you prayed, I'm going to talk about this, okay? Last year, the Title IX, anybody a Title IX person here? The Title IX person from South Dakota State came over and she said, I want to talk to you about your Mad Manual. So I thought she was going to applaud me, right? And she goes, you need to get rid of this stuff, the spiritual stuff. And I said, why is that? In fact, I said, you know what? Everything that happens in my life is supposed to happen. So you were supposed to come over here and talk to me. And she looked at me like, you're weird. And so we talked about it, and we got done, and she brought me over some quotes from some author that's, you know, I can't forget his name. Narnia, who wrote that book? Someone. Yeah, she brought me a bunch of C.S. Lewis quotes. I'm a math major and a football coach. I don't read hardly ever, so thank you. And so we battled, and then at the end she said, well, can you do that? And I said, ma'am, our program will not be the same if I take that out. And she looked at me like that was impossible. And a lot of this is because of Bob Young back there, as I look at him, who's touched our program, had the first devotion. We have a devotion before or after every staff meeting. It's really cool. And sometimes it's about effort, sometimes it's about the Lord. So anyway, we still have that. We still have it in there. And I sent her the Mad Manual, and she didn't even respond to me this year. So that's important. And again, some of you are saying, because I've talked to other people, say that's not really your role. It is my role, right? It is my role. And I don't do anything other than say, if you want to talk about this, let's talk about it. We have a chaplain, talk to him about it. But you're in college and you're supposed to grow it every way possible. Aren't you supposed to grow spiritually or make some decisions spiritually? In fact, I'm part of maybe all 3 top decisions in our life. Top 3 decisions. Where you go to school, I'm part of that. Who you pick for a spouse might happen at South Dakota State. And what you choose spiritually. Everything else doesn't matter. Those are the top 3 decisions. I get to be part of that with 18-year-old kids. Okay? And then the last important thing is it says family. Present and past. I already told you we have 1,065 living alums, and then we have the guys inside the locker. And I tell them, man, there's 2 organizations, 2 groups of people that I care dearly about. Those of you in the locker room and then my immediate family. And all those other people that take shots at us or high-five us or whatever, we got to be one. We got to be together. And so we do something really unique. We have to count our hours. The NCAA makes us fill out like a timesheet every week. We get 20 hours. I won't go into it, but everything we require of our players, we have to document. If we go over 20 hours, we're in violation. Then we get reprimanded. If we do that a bunch, then I get fired. Seriously. Okay? So on Monday night, last night, we have a non-football meeting. I require it, so I have to count it. So our guys, if this is my position group, all right, my linebackers, my DBs, my safeties, we sit down at the end of our walkthrough and stuff. We sit down and we can't talk about football. You take 10 assistant football coaches and tell them to do that. All right? It's virtually impossible. right? Because all they want to know is, how fast did you run? What's your bench press? You know, they have a very narrowed deal. So I force them. Why do we do that? Because we become family. We sit down and we talk about last night, Chase Vinatieri, I meet with the kickers, the specialists. Chase Vinatieri was a young man from Sioux Falls, our kicker, had the topic of if you could have one person as your best friend, and you could sit down and spend time with them weekly, who would it be? Okay, now one of our kickers picked a gamer or some guy that does video games for 8 hours. deep thinker. Another guy picked a race car driver, you know. And what it evolved into, some guy makes $1 million streaming himself playing video games. Now you probably don't know that, but I feel cheated. I didn't. So what happened there? They got to know each other a little bit deeper. The young man from California, when he got there, his first non-football meeting, the question was, what's the toughest thing you ever went through? He said, it happened last week, or a month ago, whatever it was, time-wise. And they asked him what it was. I had to go across, he was from California, I had to go across the street with a baseball bat, get my father out of a cocaine party. Now the boys from Chester had never thought of this. So now what did they looked at Matt, I'm not going to tell his last name, but they looked at Matt and thought, wow, you know, you probably don't know that, but he's different than me. And that allows us to grow. Yesterday I had a young man quit the football team. And I was able to hug him and say, I love you, and he said, I love you back, because we sit down and we talk about stuff other than football. And it means something. It means something. And as you know, there's no greater thing you can say to an individual than I love you. That's in the good book, all right? And in the man manual. So, how do you do?
Couple minutes.
All right. So what is Matt? Okay. This is. I'm not Catholic, but I'm going to confess to you. Okay. I'm not making fun of Catholics either. So maybe I was. I don't know. Sorry. Kidding. All right. So I was 31 years old and I was running through life. I was an assistant coach at South Dakota State, and the real quick story. I went to my brother's, who was an organic farmer. He's passed away now, but an organic farmer in Selby, South Dakota. And then I told him I was going to go see this top recruit in Fort Pierre, and I saw the top recruit, and the kid had a terrible life, just a terrible life. Lived in a trailer that was about this big. He and his dad lived in a trailer about this big. But he was the top recruit. And I was there for a home visit. His dad didn't show up. I got ready to leave. His dad came in drunk from the bar with a gal from the bar. So I had a home visit with a dad that was drunk and a gal babbling behind me. And I knocked it dead. And there was 20 pounds of bananas on the table. Right? You can take all that stuff. It's a whole different, it's a longer story. Well, I left his house and never thought about that again. And I took off for the next recruit in Rapid City. Because that's the way I was wired. And when I got home for Christmas that year, my older brother, my greatest mentor in my life, he said, hey, how'd it go with that guy? That linebacker, and I didn't even remember talking to him about it. But he was different than I was, my brother was. And I told him the story, and I told him in a lot more detail. I looked up, my brother was crying. And he grabbed my hands and he said, John, life is short, you need to slow down and make a difference. Because that kid, I didn't see the hurt that kid probably had, the embarrassment that kid had. And so that hence, MAD, make a difference. And so, in closing, are you making a difference? Are you slowing down? Yesterday we had Mitch Yost, who runs Fellowship of Christian Sportsmen, come up to her. Long story, but he gave our guys some bullet casings with a deal on it. He talked about Christ wanting to be the big gun in their lives, but he said this. He said, if you run into somebody that's hurting, and then he left, and I said, man, it's never if, it's always going to be when. They're all around us. They're sitting beside you. So back to my question, are you making a difference? Because there's people all around us in our offices and on the streets, and man, you people in the school system, there's hordes of them in the hallways. Slow down. It took my brother crying to see that. And I'm still failing miserably, but work on it every day. So I appreciate this. The meal was delicious, by the way. Thank you. Right? God bless each of you.